We shall wait for a few more minutes for others to join us. Thank you. Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you present here. Today's session will comprise of two parts. The first is the faculty masterclass and then the information session, wherein you can engage with the faculty from the Ashoka community and learn more about the MA Economics program, placements, and the admissions process. Before we start, I would like to introduce all of you to the speaker of the day, Dr. Pubali Chakraborty. Pubali Chakraborty is an assistant professor of economics at Ashoka University. She's a quantitative macroeconomist with an interest in topics pertaining to labor markets and inequality. Her research focuses on the aggregate implications of choices that are made by heterogeneous economic agents. She uses computational methods to solve theoretical models that are disciplined using household-level microeconomic data. She received her Ph.D. and MA in economics from Ohio State University, her MS in quantitative economics from ISI Delhi, and her BSc in economics from Presidency College, University of Calcutta. Over to you, Professor.
Thank you so much, Anuja, for the introduction. And thank you all for attending this webinar today. So let me start sharing my screen. Is that visible? My screen just went black for some reason.
Not yet, Professor. Maybe you can stop and reshare again.
Yeah. One second. Sorry, this was working just a minute ago. So I'll just restart this again.
Professor, if you want, I can try sharing from my end.
Yeah, let me just try one more time. And then if that doesn't work, then I'm going to ask you. Okay, is it visible now?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Sorry for the little hiccup. So today I'm here to talk to you about the MA Economics, program at Ashoka University. So the idea is, for you to get acquainted with the department, with the program, and then I'll talk a little bit about, what we teach, and a little bit about my research and how that would translate into an elective course. So without further delay, let me start by telling you a little bit about Ashoka. So we started the undergraduate program in 2014, and the Masters in Economics program started in 2017. It was one of the first master's programs in the university, and it's a 2-year program. So we had our first batch graduate in 2019, and up to now, we have had over 100 students who have been enrolled in this program. So we are a fairly large department. So we have 27 permanent faculty members, and they have research interests which span over different kinds of fields. So we have faculty members who specialize in economic theory. We have members specializing in macroeconomics, different branches of macroeconomics. Then we have faculty members who specialize in economics of health, economics of discrimination, time series, political economy. So we have a big, broad variety. I just want to highlight, behavioral economics, experimental economics. This is something which is, it's rare in India, this field, and we have electives. And as I'm going to go over, the electives that we offer in the master's program, these are fields which are fairly rare and new, and these are offered in the department. Okay, so we have, these are our faculty members, and the great thing about this university is that we are still actively hiring, and we are still, looking to increase the strength of our faculty members, and we have, all these faculty members have completed their PhDs from, reputed universities, both in India and abroad. And they bring in their expertise and, their perspectives into the department. And these are our senior faculty members who are already, well established in their fields, and we are privileged to have their presence in the department as well. Okay, so what is the MA Economics program, all about? So the idea is essentially to train and produce the best economists in the country. Okay, and we have a fairly small batch size, about 25 to 35 students, which allows a lot of interaction between student and faculty members in classrooms, and also, we have discussions outside of classrooms as well. Faculty members devote time towards office hours, even outside usual lecture times. There are office hours that are provided by faculty members where students can come discuss whatever doubts they have, whatever questions they may have with respect to the course. And not just that, we also have the system of academic mentors, where essentially students are assigned to mentors throughout their program, and where they can have discussions about how to approach the MA Economic program as a whole, how to think about a career outside, after your MA, just normal general academic advice is something that's provided by these mentors. So there's a lot of hand-holding that's essentially there in in this program. Okay, and in terms of just the level of the interactions, there's, of course, we focus on the theory aspect of it, and that is complemented with the rigorous data analysis. So the program is rigorous. We do expect a certain level of engagement from students, but that's what's sort of needed to produce these best economists in the country, right? So that's what that's a little bit about what the MA Economics program is. And it's as I mentioned, it's a 2-year-long semester-wise program. And the way these 2 years are essentially divided are in your first year, we focus primarily on the foundations. So there are core courses that you have to take in micro, macro, econometrics, mathematical, the quantitative methods. So you have these core courses that we focus on in the first year. And then from primarily in your second year, you have different electives. And again, as is natural, because we have such a wide variety of research interests among the faculty members, that translates into a wide variety of electives that students have as where they can actually opt from in their second year. At Ashoka, you also have this year-long dissertation option, where essentially instead of a course, or instead of courses, a couple of courses in your second year, you can choose to write a dissertation, in which case you talk to a faculty member. You, so long as there's mutual agreement, you work with a faculty member on a topic of interest, and you do independent study in the in your third semester, and then you write a thesis in your fourth semester. So that's another route that students can take. Of course, students may opt not to take that, in which case they'll have to just do their normal usual courses in their second year. So that's another plus point of the program at Ashoka. So let me talk to you about just the courses, as I was mentioning, in your first year, in the first semester. So the first semester, before the usual classes start, we have this rigorous math camp, which is essentially brushing up on the mathematics, because we focus a lot on the courses that we offer. They require a strong math background. So as a result, because of this rigorous treatment, we do a refresher course in some sense, which is a 3-week intensive math camp that brushes up on your mathematics skills. And then in your first semester, you have these other compulsory courses. There are no options here: Micro 1, Macro 1, Quantitative Techniques, and Statistics for Economics. I happen to teach Macroeconomics 1. I have been teaching that for the last 2 years. So I'll talk a little bit about what that entails later on, but these are the core courses in the first semester. Then you have, in your second semester, there are 3 compulsory courses again: Micro 2, Macro 2, and Econometrics 1. And then there's 1 elective that you can take. Usually the choice is between computer programming and applications, and which was the other one? It's on, I think it's economics of networks. So these are the 2 options in your second semester. And then, of course, in your second year, you choose 8 electives over 2 semesters. And of course, as I mentioned before, one could go the year-long MA dissertation route as well. So these are the different electives that are that have been offered at Ashoka. Okay, so you can see again wide variety. You have all kinds. You have economic theory. You have health economics, economics of education, and then you have computer programming and applications as well. So a wide variety of topics to cater to students who have different kinds of interests and who plan to go different routes after their master's program, essentially. Okay. So what really sets us apart? Why would you want to think about Ashoka as compared to, other universities in the country, which also have the master's program, right? So we focus, our courses focus both on, put a lot of emphasis on theory as well as data. So you're going to receive training, solid training in both these aspects. So, that of course translates into a solid economist as a result. And there's a lot of, there are courses where you would be learning Stata, MATLAB, training in Python. You'll have assignments where you'll have to use these, essentially these languages to write code. So, that helps you, not just in terms of academic career, but of course, if you want to go into industry or any kind of policy related work, this is the technical training really helps you to get these kinds of jobs. So we do that. As I mentioned before, number of electives to choose from. So you get, again, a sense of, you get to choose from a wide variety of topics. So that's another added advantage. And there's a lot of international exposure. So we have our annual conference every December. And because of the pandemic, we have been having the conference virtually, and we have been attracting economists from, from different parts of the world, and who are absolutely stalwarts in their own field. So you get exposure there. Apart from that, we have workshops in these different subfields in macro, in behavioral, behavioral and experimental economics. So there's exposure in terms of these workshops. And also we host economists from top institutions. In the past, we've hosted, as has been listed, again, stalwarts from, in terms of their own fields. We have hosted these people, and students get exposure with respect to, being present in terms of, when they talk about their own research. So that's there. Okay, so these are things which essentially make Ashoka unique in terms of the other, as compared to the other programs that we have in India. So that brings us, so far, I've spoken a little bit about Ashoka, a little bit about the MA Economics program. So let me talk a little bit more into, let's get into a little bit of detail as to what we really do in terms of our classrooms. So we, as I mentioned, at this point, I have been teaching the macroeconomics 1, which is the first course in macro, in the compulsory macro sequence at Ashoka. So let me talk a little bit about what I essentially teach in that course. So the focus, so the course is primarily going to teach you tools pertaining to dynamic economic analysis, and you use that to study macroeconomic questions. So if you have, and you don't need to have a background in economics necessary to apply for this for the master's program, but if you do, then macro is all about aggregates, and you're just seeing how the aggregates change. In this course, we start with this approach, which is now becoming sort of the which is at the frontier of macro research at this point, the whole micro to macro kind of approach, where you start by looking at household decisions, firm decisions, and then you aggregate it up to think about the economy as a whole. So that's the approach that we take in this course. So the focus is primarily on economic growth. So you learn about different models that constitute the foundations of modern macroeconomics. And of course, these are the basic models that you learn. And then you can modify these models to think about various different questions in macro. So the models that we talk about, and we, of course, we look at the deterministic versions of this model, of these models, and also stochastic versions of these models. And we look at the solo model, the one sector growth model, overlapping generations model, and models on endogenous growth. And there's a lot of focus on dynamic programming, and you learn using MATLAB to write down code for these kinds of problems, to essentially get solutions to these kinds of problems. So that's sort of a very brief overview of what is taught in the first macro course in this sequence. And now let me talk to you about a little bit about my own research interests, and which would normally translate into a second year master's elective course. So let me talk to you about macroeconomics and inequality. Inequality is a topic that I have been interested in, and again, different forms of inequality. That kind of gets reflected in my own research. So to start with, what is inequality? So economic inequality is essentially the unequal distribution of income and opportunity between different groups in society. Okay, and in terms of the broad area of economics, there are several questions that one may be interested in and researchers are thinking about. Of course, the first set of questions would pertain to why does this kind of inequality, why does inequality exist? Okay, and why does inequality evolve in the way that it does? Okay, and I'll be showing you some facts, of course, but the first subpart, or the first set of questions would pertain to explanations or sources of inequality. Then you have, okay, if inequality exists in society, there are going to be macroeconomic consequences, because inequality would imply that there's difference in terms of resources that are available across different households, and as a result, their behavior is going to be different. Now, if you want to think about the effect on aggregate consumption, for example, you want to think about how each of these different groups are going to respond in terms of their consumption choices, and that you would want to aggregate it up, and that gives you a correct measure of what aggregate consumption is going to look like. Then inequality plays a big role in terms of what the effect of a recession is going to be, and just the opposite, recession has an impact on inequality as well. So you can think of different kinds of episodes. So you can think of how the COVID-19, how the pandemic has affected inequality, and as also the opposite channel, right? How differential behavior across different households has an effect on how the pandemic really plays out. Okay, so there are these macroeconomic, so there is an aggregate impact that inequality has. So that raises, again, a different set of questions pertaining to inequality. And finally, you have policy implications. How would the introduction of a policy, basically affect inequality, or in the presence of inequality, how does a particular policy work out? Okay, what are the different consequences? I mean, if you want to benefit one group, maybe the poorer section of society, you want to benefit them, what repercussions does that have for the economy as a whole? So you want to assess these questions, and broadly, this field talks about all these different kinds of questions. Okay, so let me start by showing you some facts. So I am going to, so this table is essentially taken from Kruger, Mittman, and Perry, and talks about inequality in the US in 2006. And the reason why we are looking at this here is because we are looking at inequality before the Great Recession, took place. Okay, so what I want to highlight, so the table essentially has, the percentage is reporting the percentage share by these different quintiles of the distribution. So the way you want to read this, so this column is talking about earnings. This is disposable income, which takes into account the effect of taxes. This is consumption expenditure, and this is net worth, or the way you want to think about wealth, essentially. So this is primarily, labor income. And so the idea is, this number, what this is representing is that the bottom 20% of the distribution is accounting for 3.6% of the total earnings, okay? And whereas the top 20% of the distribution accounts for 48.5%. Okay, so you see that there is a huge discrepancy between what the bottom 20% has versus what the top 20% of households have, right? And this difference is in terms of earnings. Okay, you see that when you account for disposable income, then there is an effect of taxes, and of course taxes are not, it's not the same for everyone. So it takes into account, if you're taxes take into account that the fact that if you're earning higher income, then you're paying higher taxes. So you see that the numbers get slightly better as compared to just labor earnings, but you still see this big discrepancy that exists. Okay. And these are, so this is disposable income. PSID and CPS are essentially two different data sources that are used to compute these numbers. And then you have consumption expenditure. You see that the differences exist even in terms of consumption expenditure. Although they are slightly, again, the differences are slightly better as compared to what you see in labor earnings, disposable income. Net worth, things are way, way worse. So the bottom 40% of the distribution is essentially holding, nothing as compared to, if you look at the top 20%, they are responsible for 82.7% of the total wealth. Okay, so there's huge, of course, if you thought that this was, in terms of earnings, there was inequality. In terms of wealth, the inequality is way, way, way worse. Okay, and there are these different measures that are, of course, given. You look at what the top 1% of the distribution is holding, and the top 1% is, holding 30.9% of the total wealth. Okay. And the Gini coefficient is, again, another measure of inequality. I'll not get into the details of that, but the number essentially represents how much inequality is there in the economy. Okay, and again, you can see that it's pretty bad when you think about wealth. Okay, so this is inequality. This is just a snapshot, inequality in the US in 2006. This is, again, looking at labor income and wealth or net worth across different age groups. So you see that even there are differences with respect to even ages, right? So again, what I want to motivate is that empirically, there are a lot of differences across different households. Okay, and ignoring that will not necessarily, will not translate into quantitatively correct measures of these different kinds of questions that I motivated in my previous slide. Okay. So now in terms of the aggregate impact, okay, so this table, again taken from Kruger, Mittman, and Perry, has divided the population based on their net worth, okay, into 5 different groups. So remember, as I showed you in the previous table, that the bottom 40% of the distribution was almost holding, zero wealth on average in some sense. But you see that if you look at, so this is the percentage expenditure rate. So how much of their, in this column, how much of their earnings are they essentially spending on consumption expenditure. This is saying how much of the disposable income are they spending on consumption expenditure. You see that this percentage is very different across these different households. So even if these households, and this is showing you the percentage share of expenditure. So even if these bottom 40% were responsible for zero wealth, they are contributing to expenditure in a substantial way. Okay, so as a result, what I want to motivate is that you cannot think of just one measure for the economy. So when I teach the first year macro course, there is a lot of focus on representing the economy by the behavior of just, one kind of household, or what we call the representative household. Okay. But if you want to think about these questions, and you see there are such broad differences in the behavior of these different households, you need to account for these differences in order to get some quantitatively correct estimates. Okay, so there is an impact on aggregate consumption, and as a result, aggregate savings of this this unequal distribution that exists across households. Okay, so basically, inequality has macroeconomic effect. Okay, macroeconomic impact. Okay, all right. So how has inequality changed over time? Again, this is for the US. If we just focus on the post-World War period, inequality has been rising. So this is the top 10% share. And over time, you see that the income share for the top 10% has been going up over time. So inequality has been rising in terms of income over time, and a similar picture emerges when you look at wealth inequality. In fact, as I had shown you, wealth inequality is starker, and it has been the situation has been getting worse in terms of the widening gap between the richest households in the distribution, and then who fall into the middle wealth category, and then the poorer section of the households. Okay, so the gap has been widening over time. Now, all of this is about the US, and you may wonder, how does US compare to other countries in the world, and particularly what is the situation like for India? So I'm just showing you, the global income inequality chart. So this is again showing you the top 10% income shares across the world over this period of 1980 to 2016. And what you see is that, of course, there are differences across these different regions. So the blue line represents the US, Canada, whereas the yellow line represents India. And you see, so if you thought that the inequality problem was, of course, it was rising in the US and was a problem for India, even though it was at a it was at a lower level in 1980. The inequality has been rising substantially over the last few years. And at this point, the top 10% income share for India is way higher than what you have for US, Canada. Of course, there are various factors that play a role as to why these differences exist in the very first place. And again, I'm not going to get into a lot of detail on that, but definitely policy plays a big role. Okay, and that you see the picture for, so now I'll just show you the picture for US and compare it to Western Europe. So this is, so the left panel is for the US and the right panel is for Western Europe. And this shows the evolution of the top 1% versus the bottom 50% national income shares, and from 1980 all the way to 2014. So what you see in the US is that top 1% has been going up over time, and the bottom 50% has been going down in terms of their share of national income. For Western Europe, even though the numbers look pretty similar in 1980, for, if you look at the top 1%, that's responsible for about 10% of the national income in 1980, which is similar to what the US had in 1980. But the differences, in, let's say, 2016, the gap between Western Europe and US has widened substantially. So policies do play a role. Of course, there are differences in terms of, the taxes, the tax system that is there, and there are various factors. And again, you want to explore, you want to think of questions as to why this difference exists, and whether, if you were to incorporate the similar, similar tax structures in the US, for example, what would you see? Would you see the gap essentially going away, or are there other factors that you also need to think about? So what I want to, what I wanted to really motivate, through all these slides is that there are various things, various interesting questions that one can think about in terms of inequality, right? And, to think about these questions just in terms of, the technique that one uses, and I have used in my own research, is, this idea of heterogeneous household models, using heterogeneous household models. So essentially, writing down models where you account for the fact that there are differences across households. You can have differences with respect to income, you can have differences with respect to age, you can have differences with respect to wealth, and actually being able to see how each of these different households behave together, and then aggregate it up to see what the macroeconomic impact is going to be. Okay, so these household models are, of course, motivated by the fact that we see a lot of observed and unobserved heterogeneity among households, and you can use these models to think about what the effect on aggregate quantity is going to be, aggregate price is going to be, how are they evolving over time, and how can you think about these aggregate trends that we saw in inequality? How can you think about why they are changing? What the effect of a business cycle is going to be? What are the consequences of policies? And all of these different questions can be explored using these heterogeneous household models. Okay, so a second-year elective course on inequality would essentially start with the facts that I showed you. Of course, we'll get into a lot more detail as to, interpretation of these facts, different kind of explanations that have been explored in the literature, and then think about sort of extending the idea, the concepts that you learned in the first year macro course, your dynamic analysis, the idea that you learned there, how you can extend it to think about these heterogeneous households and ask these kind of questions. Okay, so that would be what a second year master's elective would look like. Okay. All right, so now let me move on to tell you, let me tell you a little bit about, our students and what they are doing. So what are our graduates doing? Of course, they have been placed in, various different, there are industry positions that they are currently working in. There are some research positions that they are working in terms, at IEG, there's IIM Calcutta, there's ISB. There are research positions that they're working in. Also, a lot of our students apply for Ph.D. in economics after their masters. So we have had students receive, offers from Boston College, University of Minnesota, University of Warwick, so several of these universities. So we are consistently placing students well, in spite of the fact that the program started only in 2017, and it's just been we've graduated essentially 3 cohorts up till now. So in spite of that, the reputation is building, and as a result, students are doing really well. Okay. In terms of the average CTC of Econ students, this was the first cohort, and things got substantially better for the second cohort. This was the third cohort, and let me remind you that this was the cohort which was affected by the pandemic. So in spite of the markets not being great, in spite of that, students got placed well, and the average CTC was pretty standard. Okay. So basically, the idea is that, here, of course, you have to work hard. Okay, you have to work hard, and you have to have, the motivation to get the best out of this after what we have to offer. And but again, in terms of resource, there's just so much that Ashoka has to offer in terms of the faculty members who are there. If you're sincere, then, you're eventually, in terms of placements, it's going to be, you're going to get placed well, whether you want to go for industry positions, whether you want to go for research positions, or whether you want to apply for a PhD afterwards. Okay. So, all right. So let me talk about now a little bit about logistics with respect to the admissions. This should be 2022. So the applications opened on the 1st of December, and they're open right now, and you have your submission deadline, which is on the 31st of March. We'll have an entrance examination, which will be held on the 1st of May. And then we have interviews, which will be conducted in the month of May. And finally, the results will be declared on the 3rd of June. Of course, candidates who do wish to apply for the MA in Economics program need to have recognized undergraduate degree in any discipline. In terms of the admission process, you have to submit an application form online and through the website, and there's a non-refundable fee associated with the application form. Candidates are required to appear for an online entrance examination, as I mentioned, that's held on the 1st of May. Candidates have, so the structure is objective. It consists of multiple choice questions, and the exam essentially will test students on statistics and analytical reasoning compulsorily. And apart from that, students have the option of either choosing a section on economics or a section on mathematics. And that essentially comprises the entrance examination. If you're shortlisted after the entrance examination, you will be invited for an online interview. And the idea of the interview is essentially to gauge if the student is suitable enough for the MA program at Ashoka, and because our program is quite rigorous, if you're suitable for that. So that's the process. That's the admissions process. This is the Ashoka, this is the fee structure that we have for next year. So there is a tuition fee and then there's a residence cost. So you may choose to live off campus, which is provided by Ashoka for MA students, which is your option 1, in which case this is going to be the cost for first year and the cost for second year. Option 2 is an on-campus residence within the Ashoka University campus for MA students, but you need permission from the Office of Student Affairs. This is an exception case and is granted on a case-by-case basis. There's a meal cost, which is the minimum, the annual minimum meal cost is about 35,000 rupees. And then you have, so of course, after you receive an offer of admission, students have 5 days to opt for financial aid. And the financial aid structure, I mean, of course, if you look at the tuition fee here, this may seem high, but we do have a very generous financial aid system, and students are strongly encouraged to apply for that. And it's provided on a need, it is need-based essentially, okay? So just to give you a summary of the financial aid students who have been on financial aid since 2017. So 53% of the students received 100% tuition waiver, okay? And another 12% received about 50 to 90% of their waiver on tuition, and another 35% received up to 50% waiver on tuition. So even though the cost associated with the tuition may seem high to you, again, the financial aid system at Ashoka is extremely generous. So don't hesitate to apply. Okay. And if you have any further questions, these are the resources that you should be looking at. This is the admissions page. You can contact us with further questions. And this is, if you want information about the department, then you can log in to this website. Okay. So all right. So that's all I had in terms of this session. So let me stop sharing my screen. Okay. And maybe this would be a good time to take some questions. All right. So, there's a first question on, whether economists are unaware of practical day realities. I don't think so. Of course, our work is, sort of, it's reflecting what the real world looks like. When we write down models, and some of you may think that, okay, when you're writing down models, they look unrealistic and, what are they really saying? But the idea of models are essentially not to make it realistic, so as to say, as in have all kinds of, elements that you see in the real world. But the idea is to have a model which gives suitable predictions, okay, which are consistent in terms of their predictions with the data, and they can give us some important insights. So that would be my answer to the first question. The next question is, do we need to have a reference letter from professor for the admission process? What if students have not worked with any professor in UG and have no connection for reference? How can one get a reference letter? So reference letter is, as far as I know, it's optional. It's not compulsory. So, it's optional. Okay. All right. Then you have the next question. How does a day of MA Econ student how does a day of MA Eco student look like at Ashoka? So if you are in your first year, then there are a set of compulsory courses that you're taking. Again, as I mentioned, our courses are rigorous. They require you to be present. They require you to be regular. There are assignments. We don't, there are a lot of assignments, and you're expected to be present in class. So, of course, the academic involvement of these students has to be substantial. So we expect that a good part of the day is going behind the academics. Of course, apart from that, if you're on campus, there is on campus or in the off-campus housing, there's a certain life that you lead with your peers, and what else? Anuradha, you want to sort of shed a little bit of more light with respect to how does a day of an MA Econ student look like at Ashoka?
No, Pubali, you've summarized it well. Thanks.
Okay. All right. So, okay, so that's the next question. So the admission, okay, so there's a question on the admission process for PhD students and the fee structure. So this is an MA Econ session essentially. So, there's information on the website. You can look at that for the PhD, so I'm not going to say much more on that today, but you can definitely look at the website and contact us if you have further questions. So then there's a question on, I'm also applying for IFN Fellowship offers an option to continue doing masters at Ashoka. So how does that go about? Because I don't have a statistics background, so won't it be difficult to continue with MA Masters in Economics? So Anuradha, correct me if I'm wrong. I think you still have to appear for the entrance. I'm not sure, but I mean, a statistics background is sort of required because we, our courses, as I mentioned, are quite rigorous, and they do, they do require a certain level of understanding. Of course, we do have a compulsory course on statistics even in our first semester, but we do expect you to have some knowledge even before you come into this program. But Anuradha, you can elaborate a little bit more on that.
I think if you look at our website, we have set out the exam pattern and what topics we expect students to know in the statistics part of the question paper. So if you put in required work to catch up to what your peers may know, I think that should be sufficient. But yes, statistics is an important part of our training.
Yeah. All right. While opting for the program, if one has completed BBA and not bachelor's in economics, would it be difficult to pursue the program? Again, I think what Anuradha mentioned, look at the topics that we expect you to know, look at the, of course, there's a preparation associated with just appearing for the entrance. And if you can clear the entrance, we have a lot of faith on our entrance exams. So if you can clear the entrance, then we would believe that you adequately know things which would enable you to to complete the master's program. So that's the way we would assess. Okay. How many seats are there presently in the economics department? So we don't have, as I mentioned, we usually have the batch size is about 25 to 35. Again, it's not like we have a set number of 35 seats and anybody beyond that we're just going to not offer, but the idea is to see if you clear the entrance examinations and then how many of you clear the interview process. So if you are good enough, then we are going to admit you. So that's the structure. Okay, then can the dissertation be combined with any specialization in your second year? So I'm not sure what you mean by that, but the idea is that you do take electives along with, so it's not that if you go the dissertation route, you're only doing that in your second year. You are going to be taking elective courses, just that you'll be taking, you'll be required to take less number of elective courses as compared to someone who's not doing the dissertation route. Okay, so again, in terms of your electives, you can choose any of the electives that are being offered. So there are no restrictions associated with that. So, so you can, for example, you can take an elective on macro, but at the same time, you can be doing your dissertation on and micro theory topics. So that's very much possible. Okay, is the course at Ashoka mathematically rigorous? Yes, we focus on rigor, as I mentioned. So you are expected to be comfortable with the maths. As you saw, that we start off with a math camp, which is a rigorous refresher course. So just to answer your question, it is mathematically rigorous. Okay. Will this program be online, offline, hybrid, or depends on COVID situation? It depends on COVID situation. We have been online for the last almost 2 years now. But of course, it all will depend on what the current situation is and what the university decides. So we cannot commit to anything at this point, of course. Okay, so is it advisable to apply to Ashoka's MA Econ program for a student who's not trained sufficiently in maths and stats, but still willing to learn economics? Won't the entrance exam be a hurdle for that student? Yes, it will be. As you saw, that the statistics portion is a compulsory section, so you absolutely have to clear that. And then there's an option on the mathematics and the econ part of it. So of course, again, you have to have a certain amount of training in order to be able to clear the entrance. Whether you have that training which is sufficient or not, again, you'll have to assess it based on the topics that are listed. Yes, Anuradha, you want to say something?
Sorry.
Sorry, Anuradha, your voice is cut. I couldn't hear your voice.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So just to add that, our expectation is no higher or no lower than what other programs already mandate. We are just much more explicit about it because we are much more ambitious about our students. But if you go for any top econ program, maths and stats is very much there in their first year coursework. And it's an essential skill in MA degree in economics anywhere. So it will be a good investment. And I think anyone can pick it up. It's not a big jump it's not a big, it's not very hard. That's what I want to say.
Okay. Yeah. All right. The next question is, what is the difference between the basic and the expensive residency? So one is the off-campus residence, situation, which is provided by, which is, arranged by Ashoka, and the other one is an on-campus, on-campus residency. Are there any other substantial differences, Anuradha, between the option 1 and option 2 with respect to residence?
No, it's just that the off-campus residency is about 2 to 5 kilometers away from campus, and you'll have hourly shuttles. And on campus is literally on campus. So, but the graduate housing is coming up off campus for the next couple of years. So hence, the PhD students and the master students will be living off campus. Price compensation for this, this distance, that's all. But facilities, safety, food, housing, infrastructure, everything is at par across both locations. It's just the distance that has been priced differently.
Yeah. Okay. What kind of preparation needs to be done for cracking the entrance for MA Econ? I think, we've spoken a little bit about that. You look at our website again, that should give you more indication with respect to topics and sort of the levels. So that should, that should give you a fair bit of idea with respect to the entrance. Do the students get to work on projects or any on-field work with organizations? So there are, of course, some of our students, and it's not something that happens by default, but sometimes some of our faculty members have some projects which are running, and then if students apply to them and if that mutually works out, then we do have some students who work as RAs for some of the faculty members. Apart from that, Anuradha, have there been any fieldwork with organizations?
No, only through RA work, primarily through RA work.
Yeah. So we have, some of our master students who are doing that. Is there a PhD program for economics at Ashoka? Yes, you can look it up on the website. Okay, so okay, so this is again referring to a previous question. If I'm already a Young India Fellow and want to continue masters further, brochure says we can choose any one master's program and we will get into second year directly. So that means missing out on substantial part that is taught in first year. Elaborate that, please. Anuradha, you want to?
No, I'm not too sure, Prateek, which brochure are you referring to? This is not a part of MA Economics. I think you should talk to the YIF team to figure out what you're referring to. You can email either Pubali or me later on after you have sought out clarification from the YIF team.
Yeah.
If I may just add on to that, the concerned person, just letting you know that that would be a part of the Masters in Liberal Studies. The option that you're talking about, that is an extension. MLS is an extension of the YIF, but it doesn't apply to the Masters in Economics or Masters in English program. Thank you.
Thanks, Anuja. Okay. All right. So the next question is, do we need a science background for mathematics for this program? Again, you don't need I don't know what you mean by a science background. Do you mean in your undergraduate level? Then no, definitely. Even before that, it's not that you need something like that. But again, the level of mathematics, you should be able to see it, on our website, whether you have the adequate knowledge to clear the entrance. So so take a look at that. Okay. So there's a question on placements. Again, I presented, a couple of slides, I think, at least one slide on where our students are. So I've already gone over that. I've also spoken about the average CTC. So, I'm not going to spend more time on that. Is there an integrated PhD program in economics? So it's not, we don't have an MA PhD integrated program, but we do have a student who was an MA student and then went on to the PhD program. Anuradha, do you want to say a little bit about that?
Right. We do not have an integrated PhD, but yes, one MA student went on to do some work exit CAFRAL and then, returned to Ashoka to complete his PhD, and he got courses waived off based on he could apply for course waivers, but that is a standard part of PhD structure. So yeah, no integrated PhD as so far.
Okay. All right. So I think that brings us. I don't see any other questions. So that brings us to the end of this information session. Anything else? Okay, so all right. So I hope that you found this session useful. And of course, reach out to us if you have any further questions, you would want to know anything more about the MA program. And we will be having a few more sessions over the next few weeks. And we strongly encourage you to apply. And, yeah, so we would expect that the session has motivated you enough to apply to this program. Anuja, is there anything else that needs to be done?
No, I think we are good considering all the questions have been answered. So thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for taking the session. I would request all the participants who have stayed on for this long to reach out to us in case of any query. The brochures, anything related to the information, anything related to the program is available on the website. So kindly refer to it and reach out in case of any query. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anuja, and thank you, Anuradha, for just helping with the questions. And thank you all.